Welcome back to MetFlex and Chill. This is Rachel Gregory, your host, and I'm here today with Melissa Paris. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to chat about a few different ranges of topics. I know your specialty is postpartum, pregnancy, all nutrition and training within that, and then also have a background in bodybuilding competitions. So I'm excited to dive into that as well. Before we get started, do you want to kind of just give our listeners or viewers just a background of who you are, maybe a little bit of your story?
Yeah, so I have been in the fitness world for a while. I went to school for nutrition at Montclair State, and my side hustle was personal training. And so since 2002, I've been moving some weight around. So, and then I graduated and I went to pharmaceutical sales very briefly. And then I realized that really fitness is my passion. So I wound up going back into the fitness world, and I've just been personal training ever since. I stayed in the city. And then when I got pregnant with my first son, I really started to be very curious about moms in training. And I started to really focus on that. And then especially after my first, I also got I started to go down this like really specific path about postpartum, because I just feel like there's a lot of resources that women need during that specific time. How do you get back to fitness? And we'll talk about all these things. And then I had my second son, two very different birth experiences. And I was like, okay, wow, there's some work that needs to be done in this field. So I went from this very broad, like fitness approach to this very like niche specific place in the fitness world. And I just feel like there's a lot of work to do. So it became my passion, a mom of two. And here I am, just like trying to make the world a stronger place, one person at a time.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, I definitely want to dive into kind of nutrition and training within pregnancy and then afterwards as well. Because I know there tends to be I've never been pregnant before, but I know, I've worked with moms with my one-on-one practice, and there tends to be some myths out there, some misconceptions for things that, surrounding nutrition and surrounding training. So maybe we can dive into some of those. Maybe we can start there. And then I know I mentioned like the bikini competition. Yeah. Maybe we can chat about that in the end. But yeah, maybe let's just start with kind of maybe some of the struggles that you see with moms who are, through their pregnancy with things with nutrition. We can start with nutrition and then maybe get into training and just maybe some struggles you see and maybe some tips around that.
Yeah, I think it's really hard. People are very busy, always, right? And especially now in this environment, I feel like people aren't really taking a lot of days off. Moms, there is a lot of information out there, right? But there's not like, okay, it's like there's lots of old information too, so it kind of gets lost in the mix. Mm-hmm. I really am an advocate that we don't really need to be eating for two. Really focusing on your fats and your proteins is really important, right? So I think it's the whole thing around like eating for two, which is like such a myth. You really don't need to be eating that quantity of food. Your baby will get the nutrients it needs. And if you're not giving it, the baby will take mostly from your butt, like from you. That's why it's important for you to actually eat what you need, because you need to fuel yourself too. So the eating for two is just something that needs to be sort of revamped. And, I'm very into this space. So I, follow certain people that are talking about specific things of nutrients that you need. But it's not like massive information, right? The accounts that are like out there that are giving some of this advice, I think just there needs to be some updated information mm-hmm. for moms to really give them some guidance around what it looks like during pregnancy. And I think it's like, and it really starts honestly before you even get pregnant, right? It's really not something you start doing in that first trimester. It really needs to be something that you're doing like that whole first year leading up to being pregnant. And I'm not saying that to stress anyone out, right? It's like, okay, if like all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant, right? Okay. Like, and you were like eating junk the month before, like you're going to be fine. But my point is that like, you can do some prep, right? You can really start fueling your body with, hydrating properly, like just the basic things, hydrating properly and getting enough sleep, right? Like those are like two basic things that I think people miss the mark on a lot. Mm-hmm. Just getting enough water and making sure you're getting enough rest. But when it comes to nutrition, I think it's just carving out that time, like for anyone to be like, okay, what does my week look like? You do it for work, right? Or you do it for your kids, or you do it for, you do it for your work. So it's like, what does that week look like? Where can I do some food prep? Where can I put some mindfulness into like what my food looks like and not eating on the go, right? So thinking about, if you have the luxury of sort of thinking about your life in advance, I'm like, okay, I think I want to get pregnant like around then. Some of this is planned, some of it's not, but maybe I can start taking my prenatals. Maybe I can start taking some folic acid. Maybe I can start boosting my immunity because, when you do get pregnant, sometimes the mom gets sick just to protect the baby, right? So we take the brunt of a lot of it so that we can protect our baby. So I think there's a lot that can be done in the first, before you even the zero trimester as it is. I have there's a doctor that I follow. She has a book called the Zero Trimester, and it's like really about prepping before the baby even comes, even your mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes total sense. Is there anything specific in terms of like nutrients that you would say to focus on in kind of that prep phase? Maybe even just, for me, when I work with clients, not necessarily like, anyone who's pregnant, but in the sense of just clients who come to me are mostly women. And I feel like I've never seen anybody really eating enough protein. Would you say that that's something that's...
Oh, 100%. I don't think people eat enough protein in general. They're like sprinkling chicken on their salad and they're like, I'm eating my protein for the day, right? It's like, no, we actually need to be eating a lot more protein. And, that's definitely something that I talk a lot about with not even just my pregnant clients and my postpartum clients, because you need a lot of protein to heal properly, right? It's like, this is like our population in general, right? People are not getting enough protein and they're not getting enough fat. And then they're filling themselves, they're thinking that they're not, they're still hungry. So they're eating more and more. But if you just ate enough protein and fat, you wouldn't be as hungry as you think you are.
Yeah, for sure. And would you say, like, in terms of kind of the topic of, low carb versus high carb, and maybe have you ever seen or worked with anybody who's suffered from just gestational diabetes or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I definitely have had a few clients that suffer from gestational diabetes. And sometimes you're just like, don't even know how these things come about. You're like, what? This person's ripped and they're fit and they like got gestational diabetes, right? So, I think certain times within these situations, it's like, I don't tell people to not eat carbs, right? Even when I'm pregnant, I sort of stick to a similar plan. I eat some carbs on the days that I train heavy, right? So it's sort of a similar thing, right? If you're pregnant, it's like, okay, you don't need to like walk around. I know how hard it is for some people who suffer from nausea. So like, if there's anyone out there listening to this and you're like, but what if you're nauseous? Like, I luckily didn't have nausea with either of my two pregnancies, but I've worked with so many women that do. And I understand that sometimes like carbs, the only thing that make you feel better, right? So I don't want to discredit that sense feeling, right? If that's all you're able to get down, like you have to eat, right? But I think that when it comes, if you aren't that person, right? It's important to not carb load every day, right? It's important to kind of stick to a higher, eat your protein. I don't want to say high protein, but eat a protein rich, vegetable rich, real food diet. And like, that's something that I say to everybody, right? Try to eat as much real food as possible, right? When people ask me how I like structure my week or if I do a lot of cooking, and I'm like, I do a lot of cooking. We live in New York City, but we never, ever order out. We're never doing takeout, right? We're ordering we get our groceries, get some stuff from Trader Joe's, we get some stuff from Whole Foods, we get some stuff from from the meat market. Like, we have a variety of different avenues, and it's just, you have to put a little bit of more mindfulness into the food.
Yeah, for sure. And then kind of last question on nutrition. Are there any deficiencies that you've seen, in your practice with women that need to be aware of in terms of like common deficiencies, whether it is, before pregnancy or during pregnancy?
Yeah. So I would say the easiest thing to get tested for is your vitamin D levels, right? So like, get tested for your vitamin D levels. I mean, that's a hot topic right now because of what's going on in the world, but this is something I've been saying since since I went to school for nutrition. It's like the easiest thing that you can get tested for to help with your immunity, help with so many different processes in your body. So I think that's like the easiest thing to get tested for, and just make sure that you're doing the right things to keep your immune system up and not suppressed.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. Awesome. So in terms of like training, so when someone gets pregnant, right, and I feel like there's some myths out there in terms of training, like you shouldn't, lift heavy or,
Yeah.
lift at all. Like, can you kind of debunk some of the myths that surround training during pregnancy and things to look out for maybe like during specific trimesters?
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. So I feel like people have the opposite approach to fitness when it comes to pregnancy and postpartum, right? People get pregnant and they're like nervous, right? Like, what do I do? What can I do? And then when they have the baby, people are like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to start working out again. I'm like, wait. No. The mindset needs to be switched is my point, right? So unless you have a complication, right? Unless you have a complication, keep working out, keep lifting your weights, right? Especially in that first trimester, as long as your energy's up, like, we do have to ebb and flow through pregnancy. When I'm working with my clients, I don't just base my session off like what I have in mind for that day. It's like, okay, did the mom sleep, right? Is there any complications? Like, how's she feeling? Like all of these things come to play when I'm programming for my, I may walk into a session and someone be like, oh my gosh, I didn't sleep last night, right? Or whatever. So I'm nauseous. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we're not going to do X, Y, and Z that I had planned today. Maybe we're going to do something else. So I'd have to say it depends on the person, but the mindset around slowing down necessarily, I don't even want to say the mindset around like pregnancy and postpartum need to shift. Postpartum is a time where you really need to slow down, right? Like at that 6 or 7 week postpartum checkup, I'm jumping ahead here, but
no, you're good.
At that 6 or 7 week postpartum checkup is not a green light to go run a marathon, right? Even if the doctor's like, you're cleared and you're fine, you may feel amazing, but it's not time to do that. So when you're coming back to pregnancy, I'd say first trimester, as long as you're feeling good, keep doing what you're doing, right? Kind of base it on how you feel. I remember with my first one, I was doing a lot more running. I don't run too much anymore. I do a lot of cardio with my kettlebells. But around 25 weeks, I just couldn't handle the pressure on my pelvic floor. I felt like I had to pee every single time I started like running, right? I was like, okay, this isn't working. So I stopped, right? So that may not happen for everybody. I've seen women run right through, right up until the end of their pregnancies. So second trimester, we have to be really careful. You want to make sure that you're, as the belly gets bigger, you want to make sure you're not doing a lot of twisting, but you can still be doing most of what you're doing, right? As long as you're feeling good throughout that time, just pay attention to dizziness, pay attention to how you're feeling, like anything in life, right?
Yeah.
Just be mindful of how you feel, because it's your body giving you a sign of like, okay, slow down, like take a couple extra breaths. One of the myths I'd have to say is heart rate. Doctors are still, some doctors, not all, but some doctors are like, oh, don't get your heart rate above 140 or 150. What if you're a professional athlete? Like, what if you don't know what your heart rate was before pregnancy, right? Like, it's not a great measure, because I wasn't doing a heart rate measurement before I was pregnant with either of my kids. So I have no idea what my baseline was. So it's just like not a great measure. Again, you have to pay attention to how you feel, right? If you start running on the treadmill and you're like, I'm getting lightheaded, maybe it's time for a snack, or maybe it's time to like tone it down, or maybe today's a weight day. So a lot of it depends on the woman and how they feel. I'd say where workouts really are very specific, I'd say are postpartum, because that's a time when you just gave birth, right? Whether it was a C-section or vaginal birth, it's time to really focus on that healing phase. And the body's so amazing. It's so resilient and it's so smart, right? So for example, you can't just do pelvic floor work, because then where's the pressure going to come out? Like your core, something's going to happen. Like everybody gets a little diastasis, separation of the abs, when they get pregnant. Towards the end, everybody gets a little bit. That's how your body accommodates space for the baby. So you can't just do ab work and not pelvic floor work. My point is your body's very smart. It works like a pressure system. So the best thing you can do postpartum is breath work. Your diaphragm and your pelvic floor work together. So if you're getting full relaxation and contraction of your breath, you're doing the best thing you can do for your diaphragm and pelvic floor, for your abs, and it all works together like a nice system. So I'd say postpartum is a time after that 6 or 7 week checkup. If you can, seek out a specific postpartum plan, seek out a specialist. I always refer all of my moms to, and this is commonplace in other countries, I refer everybody, no matter what, to a pelvic floor specialist. I'm like, you should just know what's going on down there. Let's get a map. Even if the doctor's like, you're fine, you're good. Why would you do that? Just go get checked out. It's not it feels like a big deal. It felt like a big deal for me the first time. I was like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? What if they tell me something's wrong? And like, it's good to just know, right? Mm-hmm. So with my first, I actually had a C-section, and I went to go see a pelvic floor person. She was great. She's like, you should just do some scar work on your scar. This will help with the stagnant tissue. This will help with the healing. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, right? And then with my second, I had a vaginal birth, and I went afterwards because I knew better. I was like, oh, this is not a big deal. I'm going to go, even though the doctor said you're good to go. I was like, no, I just want a little bit more information. So I always come from the place of the more I know, the better. Mm-hmm. So I'd say it is very different, the approach to pregnancy fitness and postpartum fitness. I'd say the biggest advice I can give during pregnancy is, as long as there's no complications, try to keep doing what you're doing. Try to, pay attention to your body. I was never a big yoga person, but I like it for the mindfulness. Just be really in tune with what's going on, connect with your baby. This is a very special time. And then when it comes to postpartum, try to resist the urge to jump back at that 6 or 7 week mark. The hormones are surging. I know it's sort of like that clean the house feeling when you're pregnant. It's like, okay, I gotta get ready, the baby's coming. And then the baby comes and you're like, okay, I gotta get back to where I was. I'm like, just it's okay. This is a special time. Your body is super smart. But there's a few great programs out there that can help you along the way. And it doesn't have to be, 45 or 60 minutes 3 times a week. It can be 20 to 30 minutes, and you can really benefit with a slower process, because you don't want to cause things that weren't there, right? You don't want to cause issues or that weren't there before. Your body's really smart. I would just trust it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Super helpful information. In terms of kind of getting into the postpartum part, I know you talked about a lot of things, but right after pregnancy, between that, right when you have the baby, it's the 6 weeks. Is there anything that you can be doing then, or is it really just, in terms of training wise, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you could be doing or should be doing before you do get to that 6 week mark?
I always encourage moms to, again, I'm going to come back to this breath work. You're probably going to, I'm like,
no, I love it. And maybe you can dive into the breath work a little bit too.
So, I was mentioning that your diaphragm and pelvic floor work together, right? So obviously when you have a baby, there's a lot of pressure on your pelvic floor. There's a lot of pressure out towards your belly button, towards your midline, your linea alba. So if you're doing, it's if you're holding your breath, it's like holding your arm in a bicep curl. One of my pelvic floor therapists told me that. She's like, if you're not getting full relaxations and contractions with your breath, it's almost like you're contracted all day long. So you could still just give birth and still have a tight pelvic floor. Okay. So it's important to, I would say, I would focus on a lot of breath work, because if you're in tune with that and taking those big inhales through your nose and start thinking about your ribs moving out to the sides as opposed to front, because think about how much pressure the baby was pushing out, and also down, right? So we need to start thinking about our breath laterally. I like to say 360. So that's my chiropractor friend taught me this. So down deep into the abs, into the low back, and into the ribs to start creating that intra-abdominal pressure, right? Which we need for lifting things up and down.
Yeah.
So I always encourage moms during that first 6 or 7 weeks. It's a great time to reconnect with your breath, focus on your posture. You're going to be doing a lot of things that you didn't do before, especially if it's your first baby, right? You're doing so much feeding, your probably sleep is disrupted. You're picking the baby up, you're holding the baby. With my first one, I felt like I was up standing in the middle of the night all the time. So I would really use that time to connect. Maybe walking is the best, especially if you had some swelling in your legs. Walking is always great. And at that 6 or 7 week mark, I always encourage moms to get that check, go to the outside of the doctor, also go to the pelvic floor person, a therapist, an OT, somebody, just to reconfirm and give some options for like ideas for like some light movement. And then that's when I might see somebody to start doing the way that I approach my mom's postpartum at that 6 or 7 week mark is I do a little bit of, it's called dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. So it's how babies start to move also.
Okay.
So from like being on the tummy, rolling, all those things help reconnect the abs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that would be like kind of moving, that actually moves into my next question in terms of core training.
Yep.
Is there like anything like specific, after that point that you focus on, or things that, because I think core training is one of those things a lot of moms get confused about. There's some myths in terms of things out there. Can you maybe debunk some of those and things to focus on?
Yeah. So the way that I approach this is a lot of rolling. And the only way I can describe it probably is like very modified examples of like a Turkish get-up roll. So there's lots of rolling to the side because that's when the center, the linea alba, that's when the rectus abdominals come back together, right? That roll. You need that like ab control to roll side to side. So I do a lot of that. And if you watch a baby move, like that's what they do too. They're doing the same exact thing. They're strengthening their core to be able to roll, right? And then to crawl and then to stand. So for them, it may take a year or 16 months, however long it takes your baby to walk, right? Every child is different. There's a huge range. It doesn't take me a year or a year and a half to rehab a mom, but it may take me 3 to 6 months. Right. And then I'm like, okay, let's start moving some weight around. It depends on the person. It depends what they did pre-pregnancy, depends on so many factors. But I would say 3 to 6 months is a great time to give yourself that 3 to 6 month period, depending on how much you're able to do, depending what your village looks like, how much help do you have? Are you able to sleep? To really prevent any injuries and to make you feel good, right? You want to leave feeling refreshed, not like I have to work out, right? Yeah. This should be a time when you're like, no, I'm re-strengthening my foundation, right? You just birthed a human. So it's really important to like understand that, like, yeah, it's good trauma because on the other side of it, you have a baby, but it's trauma to the body, right? It's amazing. It's remarkable. That's why I'm in this. Like, I never am not like wowed by this experience. It's like surreal. So every mom's different, but I start with a lot of rolling movements, a lot of crawling movements, reconnecting, your back muscles, teaching women how to like pull their lats back and down. And, a lot of standing positions. And that's why I love kettlebells so much, is because a lot of, I don't want to skip ahead if you have any questions in between, but it's kind of like, teaching a mom how to stand and hold, like say you have your baby on the right side or you have your baby in the front, teaching moms how to stand in the center and not in their hip can make massive changes for their posture, their low back and their neck. So that's why I'm, passionate about this postpartum phase, because it can be, your body's smart. It will do so much with just a little bit of tension. Just a little, you push it a little bit and then you come back. You push it a little bit and you come back.
Okay. Yeah, that all makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, another question popped up in terms of kind of like the aesthetic, I can never say that word, aesthetic side of things.
Yeah.
I know, some people, and even myself, just thinking about like, the afterwards of kind of the stretch marks and the loose skin and things like that. Like, I know that can sometimes be sort of like a fear for some people, like, or some women. Is there anything that you can, any tips or things to think about with that?
I think some of that is genetic, right? I'm not a specialist on that, but I have to say some of that is genetic. I don't remember my mom having any. I do remember her having like some cellulite. I remember with my first, I was rubbing oil all over my body. I didn't do any of that with my second. And I don't even remember, like, I didn't get on a scale really. Like, they weighed me at the doctor, but I really don't know like how much I gained with each. My second son was almost a full 2 pounds bigger than my first. And I think if you generally, right, take care of yourself, work out, like strength training, I can't like stress it enough, as you know, like it's so important, right? It's so important to strength train. Like, if you are doing this before a baby and prepping yourself and doing the strength training and putting in the work, it's going to pay off for all those things that you're talking about, like the aesthetics, right? It's the lotions and the stuff work, but the best thing you can do is, the best thing you can do is strength train. And I'm not saying you have to be the person lifting the heaviest thing in the room. Yeah. But I'm not like a huge fan of booty bands and 2 pound weights.
Yeah, for sure. Having some muscle is very important.
Yeah, it helps. It helps, it helps with labor and delivery. It helps with recovery. The list goes on.
Yeah, for sure. And I did, another question popped up, kind of just going back to when we first started talking about kind of eating for 2. Something I forgot to ask, can we actually like just chat about maybe, okay, like if I'm not trying to eat for 2, how much more should I be eating past like what I was eating before? Is there, like a few hundred calories? Is there any kind of guidelines for that?
Yeah, I'd say generally people are probably hungry or pregnant. I would say add in 2 snacks, right? Like add in 100 to a 200 calorie snack twice a day, like after your breakfast, after your lunch, somewhere in there, that would be my general rule of thumb.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. So not like an extra 1,000 calories a day.
No, definitely not an extra. I would say 2 snacks. Keep it to 2 snacks. And if you are that person that gets nauseous, keep that snack with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Great. All right. I think we touched on a lot of the topics I want to chat about. So I kind of want to switch gears just a little bit and end on just chatting about, I'm just curious about kind of your experience with bodybuilding competitions. I know, how long ago was that?
Oh man. 2010 maybe, or 2002. Okay. Yeah.
Can you just like kind of tell us how you got into that, like your approach with nutrition and training?
Yes. Blast from the past, but this also changed my life. So I years ago worked at a club on the Upper West Side. You might know it because you're a city girl, called Reebok. It is now owned by an Equinox. I met a friend there. Yep. And she's a trainer, and she came up, she's like, what do you think we should do with fitness competition? She's like, you could do bikini and I'll do figure. I was like, all right. I did not know what I was getting myself into. No clue at all. So I was like, once I like started getting to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, I have to get on stage in a bikini. Like, and I'm really outgoing now and very confident, but it probably took me until that experience in my life. Right. It broke something in me in a good way. So I did this whole training. I don't even remember how long we trained for, but we stuck to this plan. But what the epiphany was for me is when we were like on this meal plan, for lack of a better word, it was like a lot of protein. It was just not a lot of calories, a lot of protein. And I just felt like, I was like, you know what? I feel like this is missing something. So at the time I went to go see a holistic nutritionist who really helped me understand that everybody's bodies break things down differently. So I did like this elimination plan. I added in different foods. I started to eat different red meats. I learned so much about my body, right? Like what my body breaks down efficiently. I learned that like raw carrots like aren't necessarily great for me. My body has a really hard time breaking that down because maybe the next day I gained a pound. That's probably sounds ridiculous to the listeners, but it's like, I remember one time having a non-organic carrot juice and like my body literally like blew up. Like I had to go to the hospital in anaphylactic shock because like whatever, it could have been actually pesticides. Like who knows what was in this carrot juice, because it was super, it was very concentrated. Anyway, so I learned a lot about how my body breaks things down, which is, and also food prep, right? Like all I was doing was food prepping, like for me and my friend. So it was a really remarkable time in my life and opened my eyes up to so many different things, nutrition wise, how much effort I had to, put into my food. And now I've got it down, right? It's like, now this has become a habit in my life, right? And my husband, because at the time he was my boyfriend and I was just food prepping away for everybody. And so it just carried over for me. And also like how I approached food now with my kids, right? I'm not a fanatic at all about it, but I'm pretty methodical in like food prep for them and like, introducing foods in different ways. Anyway, so we did the competition. It also was so great for my confidence. It took, 30 years for me to sort of come out of my shell, which sounds so wild, right? But it's helped me in so many other aspects of my life, even just sitting here and doing a podcast with somebody and sharing my life, right? And I remember walking across stage and being so nervous I practically ran. But in my heart, I was like, oh my God, I got up on stage in clear heels and a bikini and like a big fake tan, and like I like actually did it. And I there wasn't a lot of competitors, but I think I still came in first or second place. Like maybe there was like 5 competitors, but it didn't matter because I could tell people like I came in first or second place. And then I went on to do 2 or 3 more because it can be like kind of addicting, right? Once you realize, oh, like I can do this, right? Like it's not, I can do the food prep and I can do the training, and I see big results, you know, like I was never overweight, and I always was pretty toned, and doing that prep and eating a certain way took regular Missy Paris to like superhuman Missy Paris. I was like a high functioning human. Just learned so much about my diet. So at the end of the day, it didn't even matter how far I went with the competitions. It was more like it actually changed my life, right? Just learning how to eat for me, instilling proper food habits, how much thought I had to put into my week. Like I planned my food, like I would plan my workouts or my kids' schedules. And then just my confidence, right? Just like breaking that. And some people come out of the womb being super confident. Like my second kid, he could, you know, he talks to a room of people, but I wasn't born like that. It took me 30 years, I have to say. So that it was an interesting experience for me. And I look back and I'm like, wow, like it feels so long ago. And it was a good experience.
Mm-hmm. Were there any, because I mean, everything you're saying is super positive, which I love. I feel like I've heard, you know, from other people not having such a positive experience with competitions and kind of like the afterward. Like I've never done one before. I've always kind of been on the edge of like, should I do it? Should I not? So I haven't done one before, but it might happen in the future. But I'm just curious, like, were there any negatives that came out of it?
I wasn't like super in the know, right? Like I didn't know who the people were running it. I didn't know the judges. Like I was just this girl that came in and did it, right?
Okay.
I think like for me, it got a little discouraging. I remember we like flew somewhere to go to a competition. Me, my husband, my girlfriend, we like flew somewhere. And I was like, oh, this is out of my league. Like this at some point felt to me very political in some way. Like I was like, oh, no matter how good I am, I don't know if I'm going to ever win at this. Right? Like win, meaning like get a trophy and say I'm number one, even though looking back, I'm like, wow, I crushed it. I just felt like a little bit like it wasn't something I wanted to pursue long-term because not just because of that, I think I just shifted gears, right? Like it's kind of like, oh, I got what I needed from it and I moved on. Right. And it wasn't like, that's why it wasn't necessarily a negative thing for me. I don't think I would have continued to do it anyway, even if I decided to like really dive into that. And there was also a lot of teams, you know, I remember at the time, and I'm not sure how it is now. So I wasn't looking to take it to that step. You know, I wasn't looking to like join the team of like the blonde bomb squad or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't my thing.
Were there any, like, in terms of just, you know, health-wise, like, because we know that, you know, bodybuilding competitions aren't necessarily, like, the healthiest thing. Yeah. Well, in terms of your body fat percentage coming down, like, did you like, dip too low or coming out of it?
It's interesting you say that because that's kind of where I was going with the conversation when I was mentioning I went to go see a holistic nutritionist, right? Something felt a little bit with the food, like with like the packaged bars and like the protein powders, like something felt like not right for me. Like I never was a packaged food person, and I'm not saying everybody does that. That's just like what I started to notice. I was like, okay, there's lots of products. And I didn't want to be that person. Like it didn't feel right. So that's why I saw the holistic nutritionist, and she really helped me guide me in that direction. Because I was doing bikini, I don't think my body fat percentage ever got to an uncomfortable place.
Okay.
The girl that I was working with, she did figure and she was like super, super ripped. And I think that affected her menstrual cycle and things like that. But for me, because I was on the bikini side, I still had like kind of a healthy layer of, I didn't get too lean.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I think it's not great to stay too lean for too long, right? Like you have to be able to come out of that. And, you know, I think it's hard because people get in this mindset of like, but I don't look like what I always look like, right? Or you're super lean and then you're like, all of a sudden you gain 30 pounds. Like that's really hard on your body, right? So I think for me, like kind of shifting out of that, like for me, it was a temporary thing. And whether I realized it or not, it was probably healthier for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I love that. I love that you share, because I haven't heard anybody really speak to so many positives with bodybuilding competition. So I think it all depends. And I think it's just like also not just the physical side of things, but the mental side of things,
Yep.
like knowing how to approach it and going at it in a way that is, you know, the healthiest way possible in terms of not just physically, but also mentally.
And I think I don't even realize, like, I knew that maybe I wouldn't get to that next level because I wasn't willing to, you know, go that low in my body weight content, or I wasn't willing, fat content. I wasn't willing to, you know, for me, like, I was like, okay, like, you know, it was like, okay, I ran the marathon. I'm good. I don't need to do like 10 or 20, right? Like I'm good. I did it. I proved I did it. I'm moving on. Right. So I feel like, you know, I am that kind of, I have a pretty healthy attitude around that kind of stuff. Like I don't have that kind of personality where I'm like, oh my God, I need to do this. I need to do another one. I need to be in a winner. I'm like, oh, good. Crushed it. Moved on. Check the box, bucket list. See you later.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I feel like I'm kind of the same way. So that's why I'm like, I'm probably going to end up doing it. I did triathlons in college. So I kind of had that competition aspect. Yeah. So we'll see.
Still things that I do that are very competitive in different ways, which, you know, we don't talk about because they're not as well known, right? Like right now I'm working towards something called the Iron Maiden. It's where you strict press at 24 kg, you pull up at 24 kg, you pistol at 24 kg, back to back to back. I've been training for it for 2 years.
Wow.
Like
kettlebell, right?
Yep.
Just so the listeners know. Yeah.
Yep. A kettlebell. So, you know, I've been working on that for 2 years. So I'm like super close. I can do the strict press. I'm one kettlebell away from doing the pull up and the pistol. But, you know, that's not something as well known as like, but it takes, I'm working towards this longer than I was working towards the bikini competition. I think at the end of the day, it's like, as long as you improve, right? And I think that's like the thing that I took out of it is like, okay, I improved. Like, who cares what everyone else is doing? And that's what I learned from the bodybuilding competitions. Like, I improved as a human, and I came out a winner.
I love that. Yeah, and that's all that matters too. And that's something that, you know, I work with a lot of one-on-one clients, and getting into weightlifting and going to the gym and things like that. Obviously, right now, not many people are going to the gyms, but they're getting back into it. And it's just like realizing that it doesn't matter, you know, how much weight is on the bar. No one's looking at you. Like, people are scrolling on their own phone. Like, check your ego at the door. And that's something personally for me, I have to kind of recheck my ego every month that I like go into a new training cycle or something like that, because it's like, you want to continue to progressing, obviously, but it's like, you know, for example, putting more weight on the bar to compromise your form or your range of motion or your technique might not be the best thing. So it's always kind of just like putting your ego aside and just like doing it for the reason, like making sure you know why you're doing it, and just being kind of more intentional about everything you're doing is one thing that I've been focusing on for 2021. My kind of word is intention. So
yes, always come back to that intention, right? It's like, why do I want to do this strict press, pull up, and pistol? Is it because I want to post it on Instagram? No, I want to get stronger, right? Like, and this was a goal that I knew that could take me a long time, but I knew it didn't matter how long it would take me. I knew that I'd just be getting stronger in the process, right? Like, who knows? Like, I could get pregnant, and, you know, and then that, you know, I'm not gonna be like, that might go out the window, like, but I'm getting stronger, right? So that's what I've been trying to really focus on, and I think it's even more critical for me to remind myself of that, because I want to show my kids that like it's not about like winning. You're already winning. You know?
Yeah. I love that. Awesome. All right. So the last question I always ask on this podcast is there anything that you've personally changed your mind about in the last year, and why? And it can be literally anything.
Literally anything. You know, it's so funny. I don't know if it's funny or not, but I never did virtual. Like I'm such a dinosaur, I guess, because I've been doing this since 2002. I'm giving my age away, but I feel 25. I'm not joking. I feel 25. So I never did any of this virtual stuff, and it actually did change my life because I'm able to do so much more while being home with my kids. And I'm actually able to accomplish a lot more with my career and like goals that I want to do in my career because I'm able to meet people virtually now. Like before, when I was running around the city, I just didn't have the time and the mental capacity to be like, sit down and be able to do a podcast or connect with somebody. I was just doing too many things and torn in so many different directions that, and I was able to, luckily, and I'm very grateful to retain a lot of my clients, and a lot of it's through Zoom and FaceTime. And although I've always been an in-person person, I really think that this, in some ways, it's so horrible in so many ways, the environment, that the world's in, but in some ways, for some things, like the digital stuff has really helped me see that I can still work and I can still be like at home with my kids and able to do even extra, like with people like you, and just have my voice be heard and, help spread the word around postpartum health and all these things. I've changed my mindset around like Zoom and FaceTime.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think, yeah, for sure, it's forced everybody to kind of grow in that sense. I've only actually ever done online training and nutrition, so it didn't really affect me, but I think it's so powerful too. Like you said, you can reach so many more people while still like doing other things as well. So I think, although you don't have that in-person kind of connection, there's still ways to make that connection, right? So
yeah,
awesome.
and teaching my kids like, how to be resilient and like go with the flow and like we have to be flexible. And I think it's just like, it could be powerful. I know it's so hard. There's so many people out there struggling, so I don't want to be tone deaf about that. But when it comes to something that I changed my mind around the digital.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Awesome. All right. Well, this is super fun. Do you want to tell our listeners or viewers where they can find you, like your website, any programs that you have, social media, all that jazz?
Yeah, so my name's Melissa Paris. I'm really easy to find, Melissa Paris Fitness on Instagram. I just launched an on-demand platform with my friend Lacey Lazoff. I have a postpartum program called the Fit Fourth. So it's a 3 to 6 month, depending on where you're at, program, and then it'll help you guide you into our Bells Up. It's called Kettlebell Program Level 1, and for the more advanced people, there's a Bells Up 2. So it's all within one membership on Bells Up TV. So it's bellsup.com TV. So we have the Fit Fourth is is in that program for the people that would need that, and then it progresses right into the kettlebells, and there's 2 levels of kettlebells.
Awesome. Cool. I will definitely link all of those links in the show notes. And then Melissa Paris Fitness on Instagram, you said?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Well, this was super fun, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat. If there's anything else you want to share before we head out?
No, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Awesome.